Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the second installment as I revisit the Nightmare on Elm Street film franchise. For those of you who are new, I like to make these little videos about things that I enjoy and want to share, usually about film and usually about either horror or some throwbacks to the 80s. And if you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing and hitting that little bell icon to get notifications for when I put up new installments for this. And, feel free to check out the back catalog and share both this video and channel around, as it really helps out a lot. Okay, now that that's out of the way, here comes Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. So this one is following, quick off the heels of the first film. It takes place a couple years down the road as a new family moves into the house that was previously occupied by Nancy and her family from the first film. In this new family, it is Jesse, a young man played by Mark Patton, who is now the target of Freddy Krueger, that role being reprised again by Robert Englund, who had played him in every installment except for the remake, which we will get into at another time. But as with the initial film, he's having these nightmares, these bad dreams, and we get that mystery about what's happening from his point of view this time. Now, as members of the audience, of course, we already know some of this. We already know about Freddy from the first film and some of that backstory, but luckily they didn't retread too much territory on kind of bringing everybody up to speed. What they did do though, is kind of expand it more into the Jesse character and his friends and what's going on in his life, some of the problems that's going on, stuff going on at school and so forth, and his family. They kind of upped the gore quite a bit on this one, I would say. We didn't have the big fountains of blood like we had with Johnny Depp in the first one, but we get some really crazy kills where he's literally clawing out of, Mark Patton's body. Pretty disgusting and everything. But, because that first one, they definitely had a much tighter budget and everything. We also get this kind of strange blending of waking life versus dreaming that we hadn't really seen before. In the first film, it was very clear when Nancy was dreaming, things would get weird really quick, and you obviously knew that she was dreaming at that point. But I do have a small issue with that, because while in the first film it was really obvious and you kind of knew what you were in for, the scary part wasn't if it was real or not. We knew it wasn't real. We knew it was a dream. The scary part was due to the fact that she was in a nightmare. So how is she going to survive this when Freddy's kind of calling all the shots in that world? This one felt like, with them blurring those lines a bit too much, I had a bit more confusion about what was waking, what was dreaming, where is Freddy inhabiting his body, and what's actually like a dream that's happening, and how some of that just works out within the story. It's, in my case, it just caused me to be more confused than actually frightened about the situation that the character was in. We also get this heavier lean into sexuality, specifically homosexuality, which, though I didn't catch on to this when I was a kid, partially because I was young and naive, and partially because there wasn't much like gay representation in mainstream film or television at the time, so we kind of, I guess people didn't really catch on to it as much. Some people really did right from the start, but these days, with there being many more stories being told in and about, or even just including the lives of LGBTQIA plus characters, that familiarity causes the, I guess you could say, gayness of this film to kind of stick out a little bit more, which made it more creepy, because now I notice this side of Freddy really doing anything to torture someone in their dreams. Some scenes seemed to be a bit more creepy from a sexual standpoint than he had done with Nancy. The most memorable with Nancy, of course, is him just, saying that he's your boyfriend now and then licking her through the phone, and that was creepy and all, but in this one, there were some scenes where it seemed more like Freddy was almost flirting with this guy and confusing this character who, looking at it with 2022 eyes, he seems to have obviously been kind of dealing with the realization that he's either gay or bi and just not the standard straight character. And then Freddy decides to use some of that to kind of torture him even further and really mess with him more. So to me, it made Freddy seem a little bit more cruel because of what he was playing into, that he would do anything to make somebody frightened. My earlier viewings in my youth, of course, I didn't catch on to any of that, so it did not land well with me back then. I really didn't care for it initially compared to the first one, but these days I would categorize this as one of those second chance films where I enjoyed it later once I kind of watched it with different eyes. And though I still think there are some issues with the film, I think the waking versus dreaming wasn't done as well, and the overall pace kept kind of skipping around here and there. They did up the detail on the violence and the creativities and the kills and the torture and Freddy being more in your face, so to speak. This one sat with me much more differently than it had previously. So before I wrap this one up, if you're wanting to check this one out for the first time or haven't seen it in years, let me suggest that before you check it out, you check out this documentary involving the film and its main star, Mark Patton, titled Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a video. It's available, I believe, on Shudder and AMC Plus, and of course Amazon, but your results may vary. So this documentary kind of goes through what was done with making the film, with writing it, and what our lead actor's life was like during the film and after it. As a result, so a lot of his career was starting to take off as there was a real scare about AIDS in Hollywood, so a lot of gay actors had to remain closeted for fear that they wouldn't be allowed on certain productions because of the threat of AIDS really being seen more as a gay disease back then. So after watching Scream Queen, it definitely gave me another insight into the movie. So anytime I've watched the movie after seeing that documentary, I found it much more enjoyable and interesting, and I think I might actually watch that documentary once more and maybe even do a video on it. And if I do, I'll go ahead and update the links in here and, put something up there so you know where to find it. But at any rate, let me just wrap this one up with saying it's pretty different from the original. It's got a different feel to it. It's a little rough in some spots, especially the waking versus dreaming stuff and how Freddy's kind of possessing him, but I don't know, some of it wasn't really all that clear to me. It's creepier for various reasons, especially some of the different gore that they put into it, just some of the creepy stuff that they decided to throw in. And there was some previously unnoticed, queer representation within it that I thought was really interesting to see with, updated eyes, let's say. So if you never cared for this one, I recommend checking it out again with more recent eyes, especially if you check out Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street first. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest video of mine. Be sure to do all that YouTube stuff that I mentioned earlier, as it really does help out the channel quite a bit. And we'll have the next installment up in about a week for Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. We'll get that nice music video by Dawkins as well. And I will see you in the next one.